An archaeologist named Indiana Jones became one of the most popular heroes in movie history in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he's back again this summer in a new Steven Spielberg thriller named Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. We're going to be reviewing it this week on At the Movies, and we'll also look at The Natural, Robert Redford's first movie in 4 years. Robert Duvall also stars in the story of a struggling Major League Baseball team. That's this week at the Movies, the movie review program.
The new Indiana Jones picture, and also Robert Redford in The Natural. This week at the Movies, the movie review program.
No. Do you? I think we got a big problem.
Right. Great moments from 5 different movies by Steven Spielberg, the most successful single director in the movies right now, and the subject of our special At the Movies program this week on the magic of Steven Spielberg. Across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. Now, what we're going to try to do on this show is try to figure out what every Hollywood executive should be trying to figure out, and that is, what does this guy Steven Spielberg know that the other directors working today don't know? What makes him so much more successful than any other director working today? What does he know about filmmaking? What does he know about what the audience wants from movies? Roger begins our investigation with one of the movies Spielberg made for television. Back in 1972, it's called Duel, and Spielberg was just 24 years old.
And even then, he'd already been making movies for 8 years, starting when he was in high school in Phoenix, Arizona. The very first shot in Duel could almost serve as a symbol for Steven Spielberg's whole career. It begins with the screen pitch dark and mysterious, and then the camera pulls back and we see that we're inside a car, inside a suburban garage next to a split-level home. That's one of Spielberg's basic approaches. Miraculous, astonishing, sensational, and sometimes very dangerous things happen to ordinary, everyday people, usually from America's suburbia. In Duel, Dennis Weaver stars as a suburban salesman who makes the mistake of passing an oil tanker on the highway and gets into a deadly game of cat and mouse. The tanker driver seems determined to run him down and kill him. The whole movie is a variation on that scene, with Weaver growing more and more panicked as that implacable semi just keeps bearing down on him, and he's toying with him there. Duel is classic filmmaking, a chase scene that's a whole movie long, and even this early film shows how good Spielberg is at making his chases work because he understands at a gut level the exact relationship between the pursuer and the pursued, between their positions, their speed, and their motives. The other element there is the way that everyday, beaten-up things like that old oil truck take on an almost supernatural personality, and usually in his films, that's the case. Something from everyday life will have the magic in it.
Well, people are obviously going to link that with the shark in Jaws, which is described as an eating machine. This is a driving machine, a perfect driving and killing machine. Now, based on the success of Duel and other TV projects at Universal, Spielberg was able to get his first job directing a theatrical feature called Sugarland Express, which was sort of a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde story, with Goldie Hawn and her husband on the run from the law, trying to hang on to her baby. Spielberg deserves the good marks he got for his direction of this picture, but the story was unfocused, and Hawn and her husband were quite downbeat, and so the story became quite downbeat. But he wouldn't make the same mistake twice, because his next film was Jaws, and Jaws was a very focused, easy-to-describe story with a shark that was eating everybody on Amity Island, and the shark had to be stopped. I once asked Spielberg to name his favorite private moment in Jaws, and he said it was the scene you're about to see, in which Roy Scheider, the police chief, swears at having to dish out some scraps for the shark. We laugh at that, and then we see something that stops our laughter.
Stop playing with yourself, Hooper. Slow ahead, if you please. You heard him. Slow ahead. Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Great line. That was the first time we see the Jaws in Jaws, and it's a full hour into the movie, and that's one of the secrets of Spielberg, that he was wise enough not to show us his monster right away, as was done with the subsequent Jaws pictures that he did not direct. And what he liked about that scene was, you hear we bleeped out what Roy Scheider says, but he said he would sit in the back of an audience, and he would wait for that moment because the audience would laugh when they heard the obscenity and then scream. And so he turned a laugh, he said he enjoyed turning a laugh into a scream. And when you know that about him, then you can tell that Spielberg obviously enjoys manipulating his audience. I like the idea of him sitting back there waiting for that moment, guiding and directing the audience. And it's true, when you are in a Spielberg film, there is a sense that someone else is in control of your mind and your eyes. He is not just content to throw random pictures at us. He wants to run us and run us ragged, and we certainly experienced that in Jaws, the film that made him a star director.
There's no doubt in my mind that Steven Spielberg makes just about the best pictures of anybody for seeing with an audience. I remember seeing Jaws in 1975 with about 1,200 people in Chicago. The audience would levitate simultaneously, 1,200 people, and then they would come down laughing with relief in a way because there was fear in the reason that they were scared and so forth. This is interesting, the way that he does what Hitchcock used to say that he liked to do, play the audience like a piano.
And I'll tell you another thing that he's doing. You're right about suburbia. You have it in Duel. And you also certainly have it in Jaws with this exclusive little island. Here's Roy Scheider away from the big city cop, and now he's on the island, and these incredible things happen. And I think what Spielberg also knows, because he grew up in suburbia, is that he imagines he's the filmmaker now for the shopping center theater. Think about it. You have all these suburban people. It's not downtown with the people dressing up going to movies anymore. It's all these people driving into the parking lot, going to the suburban theater. They're boring. They're all dressed with the same little emblems on their clothes. They go in, and wow, they see people just like them, and then boom, something exciting happens. You got all these people hoping that something will happen to them that's exciting in their suburbs, and he delivers it.
Gee, maybe E.T. is waiting out in the shed behind my house, right, eating my pizza at this very moment. Next at the movies, the magic of Spielberg continues with Close Encounters and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Wendy's got new hot stuffed baked potatoes, chicken a la king,
with mushrooms, peas, and things.
stroganoff with beef and sour cream.
Good grief.
They're too good to be true. They're new.
Wendy's.
Hot stuffed baked potatoes. These two new kinds are gonna blow your mind. Something better for Wendy's kind of people.
What's the difference between a little fun and a lot?
Shake loose and loose. Definitely Doritos at go. I'm caught. Definitely Doritos. Doritos. Time flies. White lies. Takes two. Says who? Definitely. All right. Why not? Big shot Doritos.
So, nacho cheese Doritos brand tortilla chips.
Definitely.
Lab work, classwork, clinical work. 15, 20 hours a day sometimes. That's medical school. If you get a headache, then it's take 2 Anacin and call me when the next class begins.
Regular strength pain relievers stop at 650 milligrams, but Anacin gives you more medicine, 800 milligrams.
More medicine is interesting, but no more pain. That's what medicine is for.
Anacin, more medicine.
The trouble with the average bargain trash bag is that what goes in doesn't always stay in. Now this is the improved Glad 3-ply trash bag. It's been improved with Stress Flex. Plastic so strong, it stretches instead of breaking. So it fights punctures better than ever before. After all, what goes in ought to stay in. The Glad 3-ply, improved with Stress Flex. #1 just got stronger.
Now let's look at what in many ways is still the most ambitious movie that Steven Spielberg has ever made, Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977. This was definitely a movie that combined everyday American life with a wild flight of the imagination. It starred Richard Dreyfuss as a suburban guy who started getting these strange compulsions to build little mountains out of his mashed potatoes and leave home and go to a place where he was sure something wonderful was going to happen. And here's a scene that contains one of the most famous single shots in any Spielberg film, the first moment when we realize that perhaps mankind is not entirely alone in the universe.
1047.
That's meaningless. Okay, come on. All right, let's see. We stop each of the single circuits and lead you right to nowhere. And Mary 10.
Ordinary things making for a very extraordinary moment there. For me, that shot where those headlights, or what we think are headlights, come up from behind and then go straight up, it's really a great moment in the movies. And every time that I see that with an audience, everybody just, you know, kind of catches their breath when they see that happen. That shot was probably relatively simple to do, but it contains almost as much of a sense of wonder as even the climax of Close Encounters when that immense and beautiful mother spaceship appears over the top of the mountain. The shot also contains something that is childlike in its simplicity, the idea that even in this very real world, not everything has to happen exactly the way we expect it to. Close Encounters is a movie that Spielberg is never really finished with. Even after it became an all-time box office hit, he went back to it and added some more scenes taken inside the spaceship, changed some of the earlier moments of the film, and brought out what he called the final version of Close Encounters. And my guess is that someday we're going to get a whole Spielberg movie devoted to what happened after that spaceship left Earth with its human passengers.
Now, the next movie that Spielberg made that we're going to talk about was developed in collaboration with producer George Lucas and writer Lawrence Kasdan. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it came out at a time when the American movie industry was down in the dumps, and Lucas and Spielberg, good friends, apparently turned to each other and asked the question, what's the kind of movie that we would like to see? And right there you can see another Spielberg secret. He makes movies that he would like to see. He doesn't sit around, like so many directors I think we suspect, and try to second-guess the audience and what would they like to see. Or he doesn't try to hop on someone else's bandwagon and make part 2 of some other movie. That's because he is the bandwagon. And with Raiders of the Lost Ark, he and Lucas and Kasdan decided that they wanted to see a movie It would be like the old-time adventure serials of the 40s, with this time 10 episodes crammed into one movie all at the same time. The result was Raiders of the Lost Ark, with Harrison Ford as the archaeologist adventurer Indiana Jones trying to find the lost Ark of the Hebrews, the Ark that held the actual fragments of the actual 10 Commandments. And in the climactic scene of this picture, the Ark is found, and it unleashes its primordial fury against Nazi soldiers who are fighting Indiana Jones for possession of the Ark.
Keep your eyes shut!
Now, right there, you can see another secret to the Spielberg magic. He never backs away from showing the audience the very thing that we're all sitting there hoping we're going to get to see. He holds back, it's true, the shark from Jaws for a full hour, but then he does show it full screen, open mouth. He holds back showing the creatures in Close Encounters, but then when we do get to see them, we see them up close. Remember that tear in the eye, that beautiful, beautiful shot? And in his revised version, as Roger mentioned, of the film, his special edition, he calls it, we even go inside their spacecraft. And in Raiders of the Lost Ark, we just don't see some pretty wooden box with gold filigree for the Ark, something like Cecil B. DeMille would give us. No, we see dazzling, state-of-the-art special effects with Nazis getting burned with holy fire right through their guts. The magic of Spielberg is that you do not ever walk out of one of his movies wanting more. Maybe you want less sometimes, but never more.
And there's another thing about that. You know, Hitchcock said the difference between a thrill and suspense is a thrill is 4 people playing cards, there's a bomb under the table and it explodes. Suspense is 4 people playing cards, there's a bomb under the table and it doesn't explode. What Spielberg always does is set up what he's going to show you and keep you waiting long enough that you want to see it too. A lot of directors start right out, they have the whole idea in their mind, they know what the movie's going to be about, so they start out and show it all to you right from the beginning before you've got a desire in your own imagination to see it. It's interesting the way he plays with us that way. And the year after Raiders of the Lost Ark, Spielberg was back again with a movie that was destined to sell more tickets in a shorter time than any other movie ever made. It was called E.T., and it was about a lonely little extraterrestrial who was millions of miles from home and who made friends with Spielberg's favorite kind of characters, bright kids from the suburbs.
What are you going as for Halloween? I'm not going to stupid Halloween.
Why don't you go as a goblin?
Shut up.
It's not that we don't believe you, honey.
Well, it was real, I swear.
What are you going as, Gert?
I'm going as a cowgirl. So, what else is here?
Maybe it was an iguana.
It was no iguana.
Maybe you know how they say there are alligators in the sewers?
Alligators in the sewer.
E.T. is one of the greatest movie entertainments I've ever seen. The one sure bet from this generation to go on the list with classics like The Wizard of Oz and Singing in the Rain. It was good for all the obvious reasons, such as its wonderfully lovable little creature from outer space and its heartbreaking scene when we think E.T. is going to die. But it was good for another reason, too, which I think goes right to the heart of Spielberg's magic, and that is it never lost sight of the function of E.T. as a friend, a playmate, and even a pet of those likable, ordinary American kids. It was once again that combination of the supernatural and the otherworldly with the absolutely, ordinarily natural.
No question about it. And he takes, look, it's all summed up in the bicycle. All these kids going to see this movie have bikes just like that. He's always dead on. He has the right candy for the kids. He's all, you know, he does it for movies that have this enormous lag time. He's never 18 months behind. He always somehow seems to be right on the cutting edge. So he has the right bicycle, and look what the bicycle does.
The bicycle can fly. Now that's funny, because when I saw this movie, I was well into my 30s, and yet when I was a kid and I had that bicycle, I always imagined in my mind as I was riding down the street that the bicycle could fly, that it was an airplane and I was a pilot. Where he cued into that or where he connected with that, I don't know. But it's ever so much more interesting when kids can fly on a bicycle than if kids can just fly. That wouldn't have been half as interesting.
Okay, that's a good point. And here's the other thing. He didn't have to add that little extra at the end. Not necessary. He's made a magical film with this creature from outer space. He's already delivered something from space. He doesn't have to put them in space. But I come back to the other thing that he seems to know. His movies run long. They're fully packed. They run probably 10 to 15 minutes longer than the average movie being made today.
They seem half as long. They seem half as long.
Okay, but they're jammed packed with stuff. And so what happens is he becomes a brand name. You mentioned Hitchcock. Hitchcock is a brand name in the movies. Who else is a brand name in the movies? Disney was a brand name. Spielberg is becoming a brand name. You will get your $4.50, your $5 worth in his pictures.
That's right.
Another secret of Spielberg. Coming up next, we look at scenes from the newest Steven Spielberg movie, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Our next Spielberg movie is his latest adventure film, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And this time, Indiana, Harrison Ford, is in the Far East trying to locate a stolen sacred stone that is helping a bunch of bad guys dominate an entire village of children, making the starving kids work in the mines. The single most exciting moment in the film is a furious chase in mining cars.
Shorty! Quit stalling! Put him on racing! Go, go! Shorty, look
Those are his helpers in the picture, a cute little Chinese kid and a nightclub floozy. But I want to focus on the technical quality of that chase, the sound, the editing, the music, the special effects. Another Spielberg secret is that he always assembles a team of fine craftsmen in his pictures who he then allows to really go whole hog and push the state of their art. I enjoyed, for example, seeing Ben Burtt's name as the sound designer on this picture. He did such a terrific job on the last Star Wars film. Also, editor Sheldon Kahn, who's worked on 5 Spielberg movies. And, of course, the composer, John Williams, who has won Oscars twice for Spielberg films, Jaws and E.T. The magic of Spielberg, and this we have to make clear, is a collaborative effort, and you can see it in just 30 seconds of a chase scene.
I'd also like to talk about the technique of that chase scene. Later on in that same scene, the bad guys get in another car and chase them, and now you have a classic movie problem, which is a chase on a railroad track with one car in front and one behind.
Same track.
Same track. How does the guy behind ever do anything except stay behind? And obviously Spielberg has looked at The General, a famous silent picture by Buster Keaton, which was about a chase on the same track between 2 locomotives. And Keaton ran every variation on that, so does Spielberg. Parallel tracks, so they're fighting back and forth. One track goes above, another track goes above. There's a chasm that they have to jump. It's fantastic filmmaking, and it's wonderfully done technically.
Yeah, but he wasn't a film scholar in the sense of going to a film school. He couldn't get into USC where he wanted to go, but he is a film scholar because he has studied classic movies, and that's another secret. He knows his classic movies.
He studied classic movies, and he's making classic movies. Next at the movies, though, even Steven Spielberg can also make a stinker.
Tennis is my life. You'll never get my outfit really white with a bleach for colors.
Relax. I'm using new advanced whitening formula, Clorox 2.
Advanced whitening formula?
Now, Clorox 2 all fabric bleach whitens like a liquid bleach and safely brightens colors.
Are you sure?
You'll see.
Wow, new Clorox 2 does whiten like a liquid.
And my colors?
Beautiful. Tennis, anyone?
New advanced whitening formula, Clorox 2, whitens like a liquid, safely brightens colors.
Well, that's certainly not E.T. in a fur coat. That's Aroma the Educated Skunk. And you know, with all his huge box office successes, even Steven Spielberg is human, and even Spielberg can make a stinker. And the big stinker of his career was a 1979 movie named 1941, a critical and box office disaster that was supposed to be a nonstop slapstick comedy, but only really qualified in the nonstop department. John Belushi starred as a World War II fighter pilot who thinks he's protecting California from an air attack, and the whole movie, the sort of Animal House goes to war. For me, the problem with 1941 was that it was too frantic, too manic. too much devoted to non-stop crazy action without much time spent in setting up characters and preparing jokes so they could really pay off. Even in his wildest action adventures, even in Indiana Jones, Spielberg is usually careful to see that the story comes first, but not this time, and I guess even the great ones make a bad one once in a while.
There were very few quiet moments. I mean, there was always something going on in the foreground and in the background, and it was just too much. Let's take an inventory. Is there anything else that he can't seem to do as long as we're on the negative side? I know one thing.
What's that?
I answered my own question.
Okay, good.
He doesn't seem to have any sexual scenes. He backs away from that. In Sugarland Express, there's a sex scene, a tender moment between husband and wife, haven't seen each other, he's in jail. But he plays a Roadrunner cartoon over it. He cuts away from sexual contact. I'd like to see him work on that.
You know, the interesting thing, I'm not sure that Spielberg can't do that. I'm just not sure that he wants to.
Right.
I think he's like Walt Disney in the following sense. He wants to make movies that everybody, everywhere, can enjoy today, tomorrow, and 25 years from now. I believe Spielberg could also make very important little dramas and very serious pictures about love relationships and so forth. And maybe at some point in his career he'll want to, but at this point, he's going for the home run every time, and boy, he's got a better batting average than anybody else.
That's exactly right. Well, that's it for this week. Next time we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including a full-scale review of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, plus a review of Robert Redford's first acting job in 4 years, playing a baseball player trying to make a comeback in The Natural. And until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Pan American, whether it's business or pleasure or a little bit of both, across the country and around the world, Pan Am, you can't beat the experience. Goobers, freshly roasted peanuts dipped in delicious milk chocolate. Enjoy America's favorite movie time candy at home or at the movies. Raisinets and Snowcaps, too. Clean and clear leaves no dulling residue. It's the no-rinse cleaner for a clearly beautiful floor.
The story of the mutiny on the Bounty has been told twice before on film, once in a 1935 Academy Award-winning version with Charles Lawton as the evil Captain Bligh, and once again in 1962 with Marlon Brando as the mutinous Fletcher Christian. Now, you would think it would be hard to top Lawton and Brando, but the new film called The Bounty is certainly their equal by telling a fresh version of a familiar story of a group of English sailors who land in a Tahitian paradise, lose themselves in the culture there, and then rebel when forced back into the regimen of military life. Anthony Hopkins plays Captain Bligh, and Mel Gibson is Fletcher Christian, and in this scene, Bligh is upset with the way his first officer has gone native.
3 men jumped ship last night. Churchill was one of them. You don't seem surprised. Now that it's happened, no, I'm not. I'm not surprised. I must say I'm no longer surprised myself when I see the example being set by my first officer. Just look at yourself, man. Look at the way you're dressed. Come on. You're no better than one of these natives. At least I am no worse.
Terrific acting there. The secret to this film is that Bligh is not played as totally evil. You can understand his position in this film. He's trying to do his job. Nor is Christian played as totally good. He's a little loose, a little carefree. These are lively, talented, and flawed characters, and we watch this movie not looking so much at the scenery, but at the two of them, studying how they react to this stressful situation. The Bounty thus works as a personal as well as an ocean-going drama, and I'm Gene Siskel at the movies.